did it feel like, because I'm guessing when you first did it, were you able to replace your salary completely? No, right? That's
No.
my friend. It's taken her 3 years to replace her salary that she made before, but she's doing good now. And so, yeah.
I think that working as an engineer and going through that, getting my degree really helped me think like an engineer, obviously. So I approached it with that engineering approach of like, how can I take this thing that I really want to do and create systems and processes for me to make it financially so I could pay for my bills. Essentially, that was my goal. It was like, can I just cover my bills at that point in time? And what I wanted to do was reach as many people as possible. So I partnered up with a software engineer and we decided to build a whole platform of how can I really systemize delivering the content, teaching people how to lift, providing educational content, and then also the meal planning, which is the most important part whenever people are trying to get in shape, is figuring out what to eat. So we developed a whole algorithm and a whole platform to be able to serve thousands of clients at a time. And it took months of planning. I wasn't making any money. I was just kind of siphoning away all my savings. And what's really interesting is that first week, whenever we launched our very first program and very first offer, I made more in a week than I made in a year as an engineer. And that was the moment for me that I was like, wow, this is very possible for me to continue to pursue. And obviously that's my experience, but it takes that level of planning and really having an approach that is, risk averse. I'm not suggesting for anybody to go quit their job. I think that having a plan of action and having a timeline makes the most sense for you to not put yourself in a compromising position. So that's the way that I did it, and it's panned out very, very well because it's given me the space to still work with so many people and still get to do what I love and not be so focused on in the business, just working in the business, if that makes sense.
And it also shows that a lot of our experiences are not wasted.
No.
First of all, growing up in a spiritual community made you vegetarian, made you have ahimsa, made you appreciate life forms. That's a useful experience, even if at that time you felt alone and disconnected from the people you were around. Then you go off and you study engineering, which again, you're like, I don't want to be an engineer, but your engineering skills are the ones that you use to launch your passion.
Yeah.
And then it's like you discover what you love doing, which is working out. And now what you do is mixing compassion, working out, and engineering. And I love that idea that encouraging people to collect passions and curate their passion. And that's how you create your passion, is that you're constantly collecting experiences and then you're bringing them together rather than like, I found this one thing and everything before this was a waste of time. And even in my journey, I feel the same way. It's like, I loved art and design growing up, which has massively impacted my career today because I look at everything through the lens of art and design. And then I was fortunately great at economics and good at understanding business and then behavioral science. And that's obviously been very useful in my life today. And then obviously I fell in love with philosophy and I fell in love with teaching and I fell in love with mentorship and I fell in love with the wisdom that I learned from the monks. And now my life is all three of those things put together. And I wouldn't trade any of those experiences. So if anyone's in a bad place right now, or anyone's in a hard place right now where they don't enjoy what they do, or they feel they studied the wrong thing at university or college or whatever it is, none of that's wasted because you're just collecting experiences that will be useful if you look at it that way in what you're building. And that isn't a mindset, that's just true. That any skill you learn right now is going to be useful later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe in this like inclusion-based universe where everything is happening for your benefit. Every experience that you go through is happening for you, and you can be the beneficiary, even if some very challenging times. And I believe that from the soul's perspective, we call in these experiences so that we can develop the strength or the resilience or the perspective to transcend them. So when I look back at my childhood, although it had its moments of beauty and so much beauty in my life, there was also so much challenge and strife as well. And I see those moments now as what really shaped me and primed me for what I'm doing today. Because at one point, the thing that I was most ashamed of is the thing that I really lead with now. So just remembering that in any time of challenge, that this is teaching you something, and in some time, maybe you can't see it right there, but you are the beneficiary of this challenging moment, and it will allow you to keep growing. It's like, there's so many parallels between the gym and life. It's like you're under the bar doing squats, and it's very, very uncomfortable. You want it to stop. You want to drop the weight. You're like, no more, I can't handle anymore. And then you push through, and on the other side of that, you develop the strength and the resilience, and your body adapts and you grow so that you can handle that plus some the next time. So that's the way that I really try to approach any challenge these days, is like, okay, bring it on. I accept the challenge because I called this experience into my life so that I could transcend it.
What's the mindset, and where did bodybuilding come into it? Like, what's the mindset behind wanting to do that? Where does that come from? And what was that journey like? Because I think we hear about it a lot, I think, from celebrities in the media who have to look a certain way for movies or things like that, and then they come out years later and they tell you how unhealthy it was. But during when the movies, I think it was Zac Efron recently, it was like, he talked about the Baywatch movie, and it's obviously when you watch that movie, you're like, God, Zac looks incredible.
Yeah.
And he did. And then, he was on TV shows at the time, but then I think he came out recently and he was talking about how unhealthy it was, or how he didn't feel great about it. And I think a lot of men talk about that afterwards as well. And women, of course, talk about it, but I feel like it's great when a couple of men start opening up about how even though they look great and every guy wanted to look like them, it wasn't healthy. But for you, how has that journey been for you? And I'm intrigued I've never asked you this before. So.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of an arc for me. I remember always being the small kid growing up, so there was a bit of insecurity there. And so definitely ego played a big part in for me to want to develop myself, because it quite literally built layers between you and everybody else. And if you're trying to protect your fragile nature or your little wounded self, then this is a great way to do that, even if it's masked through other things. So that was a big journey for me, because originally when I got into it, I had that reason. And then the more I did it, the more I really started to do it because I loved it, and didn't train because I didn't like myself, or the thought of, if I'm out of shape, nobody will like me, or I won't like myself.